Hi everyone, and welcome to another episode of Women Are the Medicine. Okay, so you know by now that this podcast is all about amplifying the voices of women that the world needs to hear. Basically, it's an excuse for me to meet up and hang out with the women that I admire and that I cherish so that I can share them with you. So if you enjoy the show, please like, subscribe, and spread the word. Now, today's guest is literally a voice with a capital V. Sonia Kreitzer is an exquisite singer, songwriter, sound healer, and ritualist, releasing music under her project Doe Paoro. Her music has amassed over 40 million streams and has been featured in film, television, and radio. And she's the creator of Activating the Voice, an online and in-person retreat series that supports groups in liberating their voices and expressing what has been historically silenced through singing. Sonia, thank you so much for being here. I'm utterly thrilled that you're with me. And before we get started, I have to say an enormous thank you on behalf of myself and the hundreds of people whom I've introduced your music to, especially your song, Divine Surrendering. That piece in particular resonates so much for people, especially during psychedelic ceremonies. Literally, I've been on my knees and that voice has brought me back to salvation. You are a sanctuary. Thank you so much for creating that incredible piece.
That's so nice. Wow. It's really touching to hear that. Thank you.
And I have to say, I've had the pleasure of sitting in ceremony with you and experiencing your gift, your medicine of voice live on many, many occasions, and witnessing, gosh, what happens to people when they experience your magic. And I'm really curious. Let's start go back in time to when you discovered that you had a gift. Like, when did you know that your voice was your medicine?
I don't know. As a child, I always just really loved singing, and it felt like my string to the imaginal realm. And I always tell people I mentor, I'm like, your voice, your art is a potential that only you know. It's like a secret you have with yourself. And so I think it was just the thing that enlivened me most, and I kind of kept following that.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, I think Jung calls it the libido, the life force energy, and it's something that, you know, as women, we've been turned to sort of like shut off because we get so entrenched in our logical brain. But the things that bring us joy, and amazing that it was from quite an early age for you. So tell us what was your journey into becoming who you are, into becoming Doe Paoro, into bringing your voice and honing, because it's you've had many years of training as well. This is not just a God-given gift. There's been hours and hours and probably years of practice and technique that have gone into crafting your incredible voice. And people who are listening to the podcast, I'm gonna, I've played some of the music at the beginning, so you'll recognize just what I'm talking about. But yeah, what was the journey to creating Doe Paoro?
I think it's such an unfolding journey to find your voice. And mine is very linear in a lot of ways. You know, I was self-trained for a long time. And then when I was 27, I went to India, and by way of grace, really, I found myself at the Tibetan Institute for Performing Arts and ended up studying Lamo, which is Tibetan opera singing. And that was a really pivotal moment for me because their singing is so ethereal and cosmic, and I found ranges within myself that I didn't know existed. It's like a archive opening. and I started to really find my voice. Before that, which is pretty common for singers trying to find their voice or their style. It was very iterative, like mimicking or, stylistically riffing off of artists that I admired a lot, and trying to kind of do what they were doing, but it wasn't my resonance. So I feel like the years have just been like sloughing off what is not mine and trying to get closer to what is uniquely mine in my voice. Of which my plant diets have also been part of it. And and all these wisdom modalities I've been so fortunate to study under.
Yes. Talk to us about some of those, because you've worked with Shipibo traditions, you hold ceremony, you're incredibly experienced in this field. What is it that these medicines, these plant medicines, and the indigenous tribes that you've been, sitting with and learning from, what have they taught you? I mean, it's a big question.
It's a big question. I feel like we need a 10-part series on that.
Yes. Let's break it down. Let's break it down.
Let's break it down. I mean, the main thing is singing is our birthright, and singing is natural. And this idea of the stage and the audience is so not the thing.
Oh my God, I love that. Yes, the pennies just dropped. The pennies just literally just dropped for me with that.
It's just not the thing. The thing is the circle. The thing is all of us together. And sitting with indigenous people, my main teachers, as I said, the Tibetan, I've been fortunate enough to study with the Tibetan community and see how they're preserving culture in their songs and preserving, really ancient Buddhist wisdom. And then I've been fortunate enough to study many years now with the Shipibo lineage, and I can share a lot more on that. Mostly that the plants, the trees, the earth, they all are waiting for us to sing with them. And they can be enormously helpful in that, feeling that encouragement and finding our resonance. And then I've also been fortunate enough recently to begin also getting to learn from the Noki in Brazil, and their music is so alegria, so like joyful. And what I'm learning from them is coming back into the circle and how we raise the frequency together through singing together, and how everyone's a part of that.
Oh my goodness, yes. I remember so distinctly my first ceremony where I met you, and you did a singing circle. And I remember we were passing it on to someone in the circle and singing, and everyone took it in turns. And I remember I was crying as I was singing. It was so hard for me to sing. It was terrifying and at the same time incredibly liberating. So when you're talking about, this, and now you can't shut me up, I'm probably out of tune, but I'm in circle and I'm just like, I just love it. So that was a gift that, you kind of cracked me open with that. And then every time I've now sat since in ceremony, been able to share the joy of singing playfully. I wonder what it is that stops us. You're so experienced in working with people to activate and liberate the voice. So talk us through some of, and maybe from your own personal experience, if you may have experienced the same sort of resistance, or other people from outside of you telling you that you couldn't sing, or was it always like, did you just know? Like,
I think singing, one, is a way that we cast spells, and paradoxically, what shuts our voice down is also these historical spells. Whether that was like, a parent saying children should be seen, not heard, or somebody telling you that your voice wasn't good at a very young age. Those are like the more personally historical, but then I don't think we can actually fully understand why the voice is shut down without a structural critique of dominant culture, which, where certain voices are privileged over others or given more space. And, especially, just different. It's very unique to somebody's particular lineage and culture. Almost all women have been suppressed on some level, even, now as to kind of pull back on something you mentioned earlier, like this libidinal awakening that's been suppressed by a sort of logos, headiness and overthinking, where singing is such a, I don't know, I think singing is quite erotic in some ways as well.
And it's
like our
presencing,
soul.
right? You can't sing and not like it's just, there's so many things that it does to connect. I remember listening to someone who was talking about psychedelic ceremonies and saying that actually one of the messages that she got was not just that love was the omnipotent sort of primordial energy of consciousness, but that it was music, and that music and love cannot be, untangled. There's so much in the vibration of just sound. It doesn't even have to be words, right? Just sound. What is it that is so uniquely healing then about perhaps we can talk about any people, but I'm obviously interested in women, but people who find their voice through song? What else does it unlock? What have you witnessed in people over the years as you've been taking them through this beautiful process of activating voice and power?
Oh, there's so many things. I think it unlocks all the hidden parts of ourselves. I think it's not uncommon when somebody hasn't sang in a long time for them to sing, and also for tears to come. It's like a really deep thawing. And the voice is the part of ourselves that only we know is there. Like, we get to choose. We have agency over when we express it and when we don't. And so when you really start to express things you haven't expressed before, there's kind of a I feel like it's resensitization of all these parts that have maybe been numbed for a long time.
Yeah, like coming back online, I love that.
I mean, have you ever had an argument with somebody and said, or not an argument, been in some sort of heated conversation and said something you've been holding for a long time and scared to say out loud?
Yes.
And then felt like a huge charge move through your body?
Oh, yes. Yeah, sometimes not even having to say it to the person, but just to actually express it, right? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. And I suppose, what's your take on, what are you learning from the traditions and the tribes that you've sat with in terms of what singing in circle can do for individuals and the collective?
I think it's such big medicine to get back in the circle and singing. I think it reminds us, it's a remembrance of our inherent belonging to a larger body.
Mm.
That is a integration of this false idea of individualism that we've has been dominant in our culture. So that's the first thing, is this sense of belonging that I think is reestablished from circle singing. And the second thing that I notice when we hold containers with days of singing is just harmony that happens in the group. There's such a deep care and harmonization of all of our gifts and sounds and resonances. And I find so much peace in retreats or gatherings that are centered in song.
Mm. I wonder what that is. Is that the experience? Is that the vibrations of the sound unifying people's and make energies and making them cohesive? Do you have any thoughts on what's going on there?
The first thing that comes to mind is singing puts us in our heart. It grounds us in the body, because the body's the instrument. And so, singing together just places us here. And I think we start operating from the actual intelligence of the heart a bit more. We're able to access that more than we are when we're just kind of going around in our cerebral ways.
Yeah, just locked in our logical brains and our rational brains, just on automatic. Yeah. And I'm curious about your own relation to sound and song and healing, and how, because you give your medicine, your voice, your song is medicine for other people, but how is it medicine for you? Are there any examples of how it's helped you through difficult experiences or dark days? We're in a period of darkness right now. What do you get from your gift that's personal?
Yeah, thanks for asking that question. so much. I feel like I'm able to kind of like Rapunzel the pain in my life into something that is generative and useful for others and for myself. Through finding it in a song, I find writing music really alchemical in that way, where something that's very difficult for me, I through music, I'm starting to find the treasure in it. And even like with a song like Divine Surrendering, sometimes I sense when people meet me, they expect this like quite ethereal person, and the reality is, it took me like 38 years of resisting life, to write that song. It was like I was so resistant to the lesson of surrendering. That's why I was able to channel that song, because when I finally did, I was like properly humbled
Wow.
by the immensity of it. But it's because I'm a completely unsurrendered person that I was able to find that song.
Yeah. I was going to
If that
ask you
makes
about
sense.
that. It does. I mean, to me, it's like, it's the thing. I remember being on my knees after an ayahuasca ceremony, my first experience, that was so challenging. And I knew I had to go back in the next, which was that later that evening, to sit again and to find the courage to go back in after the experience that I had. I just kept playing that track over and over and over. It was comforting because I love you and you're a friend, and your voice just does something that puts my system at ease. But also the words are, I mean, they can apply to everything, right? They can apply to a psychedelic journey. They can apply to life. Was it written about surrendering to life? It has for me such resonance for psychedelic journeys. Is it written about a psychedelic journey, or did you have, like, walk me through some more of what inspired it?
I'm trying to figure out how much of the story to tell, but there were I'm like censoring and
We
finding
can
the
always
sweet spot.
cut bits out if you decide that you don't want to. Even be like post-production.
Um, I did a ceremony myself before I wrote that song, like 2 days before. And the person who was holding space for me ran me through this really intense visualization beforehand in like the heat of California sun, looking out and doing some sun gazing. And before the ceremony started, he was like, after kind of walking me through this process, he said, "Okay, and what is the first word that comes to your mind right now?" And the word was surrender. But I knew because of years of being in medicine space, that if you say surrender, it can be if like you're like, my intention is surrender, it can be a really hard journey. So I was like, I'm not falling for this. I was like, serenity. The word is serenity. And then the ceremony started, and of course it was just like surrender, surrender. And I couldn't avoid that was what I needed to learn at that time. And I was in my personal life, coming at the end of a relationship in which I was really like just in such resistance to accepting what was. And in this ceremony, my body experienced like the deepest surrender I'd ever known. I was like, whoa, my body is holding so much pushing resistance. And this is like the softest thing I could ever experience, is the surrender. And then, 2 days later, I went to my friend Devin's house, and I wrote the song in like 15 minutes. It just came out, and it wasn't, it was about everything and for everything.
Yeah. Wow. I love it when artists say, it just kind of poured out of me. It was just came, it was channeled. That's when it's a gift. It's just heaven sent.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. And you've got, what are you doing at the moment in terms of creating? I know you've released some tracks recently, which are beautiful. It's pieces around forgiveness. What has inspired your latest sort of round of songwriting?
So I just put out a record in September. It's called Living Through Collapse. And didn't make the title so metaphorical. It's really about my own personal journey of both identity disillusion and physical collapse that I've been navigating the last few years, and then also watching systems collapse as we, in Vanessa Andreotti's words, hospice modernity together. So it was like I think these songs are a series of prayers for how we can collapse well, how we can be like death doulas and birth doulas in our time, and also calls to action and reparative action.
Wow. Yeah, it's deep. They don't just sound good, people. They are encoded, with prayer, with intention. So powerful. What's your how do you see the role of song and music in the world that we are, that we're witnessing collapsing, but also in the world that we're maybe reimagining together?
Yeah, absolutely. And the reimagining part is so important, right?
Yeah,
While we
otherwise we'll
acknowledge while we acknowledge the doom and the grief that is also real, there is also joy and potential and reimagining. And I think songs, one, can help wake us up. I think they can create shared resonance. I think they can get into our system, which is why it's so, I don't know, for me, it's really important and to listen to songs that have feel good on my nervous system and are not violent. So much of music is really violent, I find today, or just following these narratives that feel escapist, or I'm talking about popular music, or like really, really small, really micro, as opposed to the potential music has to awaken us to a much more spacious place where we can imagine, where we can dream, music that can be part of our ceremonies, our circles. And I think, D'Angelo just passed this week, and I was blessed reading a quote by him, and it was something like, artists have a huge responsibility, and we can choose whether to own that responsibility being, he was comparing it to Aretha Franklin's role in supporting civil rights movements. And I think we are in such a moment of collective revolution, and artists can choose to be a part of that, can choose to speak to that, can choose to make music that directs us towards there, or we cannot. We can make sugar music and keep the dance going. So it's up to us.
Yeah. And we know which side you're on in terms of, you're political in your music. You're an activist. You're a truth teller, right? As well, which is not easy when you're a woman of mixed heritage and with everything going on in the world. So, thank you, because it takes immense courage. It takes immense courage to just speak out and have a stance, let alone produce something that, is for the world to hear. Yeah, it's a crazy world. But we have, like you say,
I'm curious for you too, Naz, because I mean, I've been inspired by how you've used your voice, and I'm curious about how that's been for you to use your voice in speaking, to what's happening in the world in the last years.
Just has been very often terrifying. It feels more terrifying to speak up on platforms where you don't, like, everyone on the other side is kind of like a stranger. So there's that collective, like, I don't know who's watching and who's listening. But very, like, what's been more important to me is speaking my truth in smaller circles. So bringing my voice and my stance, which is always around love and tolerance and understanding and humanity, and bringing people together and versus being divisive and having power struggles, and bringing that, no matter how painful it's been, to circles and to ceremonies. it is a challenge to speak up, I believe, on platforms, because you make yourself a target. But I'm not so worried about being a target. What I'm more concerned about is, I think there's this whole sense of like, if you get something wrong, if you say something and you offend the wrong person. So I'm doing a lot of work in the background. I have a mentor who works with me, Mish Farolu, and who I've interviewed her on the podcast that'll be coming out later this year. And she is a white woman who grew up, she's French, Jewish, Zimbabwean, and she works to I suppose, decolonize white body supremacy, because she's like white supremacy and racism is kind of, it's harbored in the body, in the nervous system. So she's bringing a really somatic view to me. So that's kind of where I'm also leaning to, is having conversations with people one-on-one. But yeah, I mean, how about you? I know, I mean, you are, you have, Jewish lineage. So we're sitting on opposite ends here, but we speak the same, language. But how has it been for you and your extended circles to have a particular stance on this?
It's been super painful, I mean, there's just been so much grief at, I have one side of my family is Ukrainian, and then I'm an Ashkenazi Jewish woman from America living in empire, and to call the genocide in Palestine by its correct name, I've, especially as a visible person, I have been deeply, targeted in different spaces, and it's been painful, but not as painful as like the moral call that keeps me up at night around what I'd be continuing with silence. And so there's this double grief of just so much pain for the world and so much devastation for the massive loss of life and futures and violence, and also just dehumanization that has happened in so many different areas, but especially to the Palestinian people, even the way their narrative has been told. And then there's a secondary grief that I feel on a personal level of just who are my people, community I've lost as a result of my, taking a strong stance and speaking out. And then just the work I've had to do unpacking, unpacking Zionism from my somatic body too, and from like understanding, what's been programmed into me. And it's been really deep. It's ancestral. I've done a lot of ancestral work. And I still find actually this is like a topic that it's so charged. It's so hard to sometimes find the words because it's so tender and deep.
Yes. And I think, you mentioned the word grief there. I think grief is I think grief and joy are those emotions that actually need to be witnessed and shared in order to be fully expressed. And I think sharing the grief with people, and just whatever that looks like, crying, screaming, making art, just holding one another in that space as we then kind of pick ourselves back up and then move onwards. But it's interesting. It's dark. It is a very, very dark time, and I wonder, Sonia, if when we do medicine work, there are veils that are lifted. There are existential perspectives that are opened up to us, and I wonder if there are any that have come to you from this work around what's happening. Is there a bigger perspective around some of this? Is there any comfort? I know for me it's been a little bit tricky, but sometimes, I don't know, source has shown me sometimes that there's no good or bad, there just is. It's a really strange thing to kind of to bring into everyday life. But I have this part of me that kind of understands on some level that this is all just part of the experience. We've asked to experience the highs and the lows, and we've gone to incredible spectrums, polarized spectrums of this. But that view is it's a very, like I say, it's an existential view that has come from doing sort of deep work. But in reality, you know, I still live in this 3D world where all of this stuff is happening. But I just wonder if there's anything that's resonating there, any perspectives that you might have, or anything that the traditions, the Shipibo or your tribes, what do they see when they look at us?
I mean, I think a lot for them, right? Like they're like, the world has been collapsing for a long time. Like, you know, we're all like, oh, it's collapsing, but it's like for colonized people, you know, there have been this level of violence and devastation has existed for a very long time. So that's one perspective. And then, you know, I think for me personally, my medicine work in this time has been a really important support in coming out of identity, you know, the identity of like, of being a Jewish person. You know, that doesn't mean I'm always going to be, that's my heritage and my ancestors, but like, what beliefs did I inherit blindly as a result of being born in this specific context? And the medicine space allows me the spaciousness to be like, actually, this is not you. This is something you learned, you know, and start this generative identity dissolution. And there's grief involved in that, but there's also like the deepest inhale as you come out of these constricted identities that allow you to become part of the fold again in humanity. And and for me, the song Forgiveness is, you know, that's a part of this record, is such an important part of that. Like that song came to me from really reflecting on the ancestral and karmic assignment of this time, which is we've got repair work to do. And, you know, we have to forgive those that came before us, that handed us the things they were not able to work out.
Yes.
And we're going to keep having to forget, you know, practice forgiveness with our web of relationships, because we're all in some level of human ignorance, and it's just going to keep happening. And so how do we like, you know, be relationally, how do we be relational in this time of so much divisiveness and misinformation and all these negative things, you know, that are very real? And how do we keep fortifying those bonds through the humility of forgiveness and actual reparations for things that haven't ever been acknowledged properly?
Yes. You know, the micro and the macro here are being shown so clearly when we're doing our inner work. We have to acknowledge our shadow parts. We have to acknowledge the wounded parts. We have to listen to them. We have to make repair. We have to forgive ourselves and move forward. And it feels like it's the same on the outside. It feels the same in our relational work. And yeah, I love what you said about these sort of karmic ties. And some of the work that Rachel and I have been doing has been to thank our ancestors for, you know, making contracts and agreements, such as the patriarchal contract that served our ancestors at the time. They needed to do it. We needed to stay safe, but that doesn't serve us anymore. I think it's such an important part of being a human being today, is exactly what you've described as disidentifying from the labels so that you can connect to your humanity. And then you get to choose like the parts that are like, no, this really serves me. This really connects to my values. And, you know, I inherently believe that human beings, you know, there's so much that we have in common, much more that we have in common than all of the external trappings that we see as keeping us different, whether it's the color of our skin or whatever it might be. But underneath it all, our values, our core values, that just, the deeper we go, the more coherence there is with that. And we see this from, you know, people who do like MDMA work between the Israelis and the Palestinians, right? They bring them together, they serve them medicine, and then under the influence of the medicine, they're able to see one another's humanness and find the commonalities. I think this is why I'm such a fan of psychedelics, for that, for that very reason, because it does connect us to that deep human part of us.
Mm-hmm. I'll say one other thing that's coming up for me too is like, this has at least been my lens to date on medicine work, and it might change, but this is kind of what I see is like, you come in usually with a personal problem. You think it's a personal problem, and it is on some level. And like, as if you continue down a path of medicine as like a, your sanctuary, and you continue to journey, at some point you transcend that personal level. We never do fully, but you start to be in consideration of the collective and these collective issues. And then you, at the same time, you also start to access these kind of ancestral realms, because it's so connected. And if it's not moving in that direction, where you're starting to consider how all of these things trickle down to your personal life, and how all of your personal choices are connected to those things, and in consideration of a larger body of the human and more than human, honestly, then I think your path probably needs some adjusting, because it hopefully will blossom in that way.
Yeah, I have this phrase, I'm like, you can be an enlightened asshole. Like, there are people who do lots and lots of medicine work, and they're still incredibly individualistic, egocentric. In fact, it's enhanced their narcissistic traits, or it's enhanced the delusion, right? For want of a better word.
Well, right? Medicine is it's a, what is it? Like a neutral amplifier of
non-specific amplifier. Yeah.
That's what it was. Non-specific amplifiers. So if you come in with narcissism, it's going to continue to feed that engine of delusions of grandeur.
Yes. Unless
it's not necessarily going to check that.
You're in community, or you're working with medicine people who can spot that and like hold you accountable for it. This is why I think it's so incredibly important to do this work in groups.
I couldn't agree more.
You've sat in, probably hundreds of ceremonies. What's the difference between indigenous and more westernized ceremonies, where we might bring in, Icaros, medicine music, medicine songs, but like, is there a distinct tonal difference between those sacred spaces that you can speak to?
And like contemporary, whatever we're calling that. It really depends on the lineage you're sitting with. Like, right, the Shipibos have a very, very specific way of working through song, which is the Icaro, which is, essentially these healing, clearing songs that are transmissions from different plants or trees or energies that the maestro has dieted, and it has a very particular resonance. I always describe it as like hits my body as kind of sonic acupuncture.
Oh,
yeah, and those songs are saying to individuals too, so that's a difference. I think when you're in, like somebody will come up and sit in front of the maestro, they'll come to you and they're singing in front of you. So those songs are specific to the person that they're singing to and the issues that they're trying to work out in the ceremony.
Beautiful. With those Icaros. Okay. And so then, yes, in more contemporary ceremonies, and I think that, people do have ceremonies of lots of different styles, but it is more, my own experience, I'll speak from my experience when I sat with the Hunikun. I remember sitting down and the Page started singing with his little like ukulele, singing the song, and I was like, oh my God, I can't listen to 10 hours of this. And then quite quickly, as the medicine got hold, I was like, thank God that they're singing this. This is like it's an anchor for me. And I came out of ceremony and I was singing like for weeks and weeks, I was just playing the music and singing the music and being back in there. There's like, what, I know you said it's a transmission from the plants, and the maestro is kind of is channeling that, but what is the music? What are the Icaros for? I get a sense that they're not, yeah, that there's a specific role for those, in ceremony.
Yeah. I think Icaros are the specific chants to help each person, so, and I, I only know the way that my teachers work. I'm sure there are other Shipibos that work differently. And, but, say somebody is working through addiction issues, like they will sing an Icaro to clear the energy of drug addiction or whatever that specific thing is, or maybe cleaning the energy of neglect, which might be some of the root of the addiction, and maybe cleaning some of the energy of, just self-abuse. So they can sing to really specific things depending on what you're working with.
Beautiful.
As I'm like so many over a decade on this path now, I can get really specific with my intentions. I'm like, clean catastrophic thinking from my field.
Amazing. And do you going to the maestro and saying, this is my intention? Can you?
Yeah, we do. That's the way we work. We work with them with intentions, and we talk about things beforehand, and then they'll sing and obviously interpret in their way what that is. And all sorts of things are, happening in many languages because we're both speaking Spanish as a second language, and their first language is Shipibo. So
amazing. I hadn't realized that Icaros could be so specific, because the ones were with the Hunikun, they were sort of sang for the collective, and they went on for hours, but they were so beautiful by the end of it. I was like, thank goodness.
Yeah, and I think a lot of, it just depends on the lineage you're working with. I think the Noki Koi work a bit more in the collective level too of intentions in that way. But I'm still new to them. So that might be fake news. But but yeah, with the Shipibos I've worked with, you can get very specific on the things that you're trying to
clear,
get help on.
Yeah. Okay, and then tell me what it's like for you in ceremony. What are you responding to in the room? How do you choose your music? What are you like? You don't go in with like a set list, right? It's not like you're kind of, tell me what's going, like, how do you prepare, and what's the process for you in that space as a medicine woman?
I really prepare by also consistently doing my own work, as we've been talking about, like going down to the jungle and sitting with my teachers at least twice a year at this point, so that my own path and channel is getting stronger in that way. And then before a ceremony, setting lots of prayers, clearing the space, centering myself in different ways. And I feel all that preparation is for this giant improvisation of what is going to happen, because each ceremony is very different. And all that preparation ideally goes into helping me be more attuned to the space in the moment. And so, we usually like to start out as really spacious with the music as people are dropping in. It's very gentle, but it just depends what the room needs. I feel we're all very we have the potential to be quite psychically connected in that space. And that's not to impose and project what's happening on other people, but I think we are actually psychically connected all the time, just normally very numb and dissociated to the fact that that's a capacity we all have as humans.
Yes, 100%.
And right. So I'm just paying attention to that when I'm in the space, and choosing songs that I think can lift the energy or speak to what someone's going through. And then the other thing is, like, if somebody is if one person is kind of having a big experience, sometimes we'll bring in it depends. It really depends. Sometimes a drum can be really helpful to kind of settle the room. Sometimes it's actually the opposite. Silence it just is really moment to moment tuning into what the best thing is. And that's why it's also really nice to work with other musicians on this path, to check in with them of like, this is what I'm tuning into. What do you think?
Yeah.
And
yes.
and kind of have like
I've seen you work your magic with Ebba and Sita,
Mhm.
and other practitioners who've been in some of the ceremonies. It's quite magical. And it's, I think it's important to make the distinction that it's not a performance, right? It's not you there. You're not performing music. You are becoming a channel for medicine. And I know you had a record deal prior to sort of dedicating and devoting yourself to the medicine work. And how was that? How was that different from your experience now? What did you learn from being in the kind of more mainstream music scene?
I think I had to do that just to know what it was, to have that experience.
No, we don't like.
And it's like, and also to just like, again, it's a generative identity dissolution. Like the 7-year-old inside of me who was listening to like Whitney Houston and Mariah Carey was like, yeah, this is what you do. This is the dream. You become a singer and then you sign to a record label and all these things. And the reality is the 7-year-old didn't know that there was like this amazing path of medicine work and healing with music, and something that was way more aligned to my spirit. And so I did that. I was signed to a label for 2 years. I toured the world, and I was very, very burnt out and unwell at the end of that time. And throughout that time, anytime I'd get a little bit of cash, I would go to the jungle, go find some of my teachers, and like be in these other spaces. And I was living this really fragmented life.
How did you first fall into medicine work then?
How did I do? I was like 27 at the time, and I was going through something. Nothing was working. I had like sat 2 Vipassanas, and I'd gone through all my tools. I was in therapy, and nothing could get through. And a friend of mine had mentioned the medicine, and I was like, that sounds really scary. And then 2 months later, I was in a circle. I was like, okay.
What did you sit with first? Was it Aya?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I did. And it was so mind opening that I was like, okay, I'm going to keep learning about this.
Incredible. Okay. So I want to share with you, I invite you to share with people about your work, about your activating the voice work. I know you've got a retreat at Brave Earth, which is just one of the most incredible. It's not a retreat center. It's like, to call it that is, absolutely dismissing so much of its humility and integrity. But you have a retreat over the new year. And in fact, I know people that are coming. So I'm very envious. But yeah, talk us through what happens on those experiences with you.
Yeah. Well, it's a very emergent space. But what it definitely involves is singing every day, and not just singing, but also moving through different practices for expressing your truth in conversation, in conflict, in learning how to, I like to say, like finding the edges of where your voice trembles and leaning into it.
Of course you do. Yes.
That's the exciting space for me. That's what I was talking about earlier when I'm saying it's like a resensitization. It's and then cellular awakening at that point when you're like, oh, my voice is going to tremble through this. And in this gathering, we kind of build up the inner resilience and courage to step into those spaces and give it a shot. And we create a really, really safe space, which I feel is the groundwork for the voice, because the voice can be so shy, and it needs to feel really safe to have a go at it. So that's what we work on doing throughout the week, and just amazing things happen. I don't know. I've seen like so many miracles in these spaces. It's truly, I don't know, just a grace.
Yeah. And talk us through a little bit about Brave Earth for people who have never been to Costa Rica, and maybe they think retreat centers are like these kind of shiny, air-conditioned places that are very, very polished. Walk us through Brave Earth, because you obviously have a relationship to the stewards there and the land.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I'm now a partner there as well. And so we actually started not calling it a retreat center recently, because we were like, we need to change our language around this. So we've renamed it the Center for Applied Cultural Transition, because that's what we're trying to do. Our intention is to create a space for people to experience these imaginal realms outside of dominant culture, the dominant culture of racism, of capitalism, of patriarchy, all the things that we can think about that are contributing to the ills of the world. And so Brave Earth is a community of artists and activists and dreamers who are trying to find a way to practice post-capitalist realities. And we are a living experiment. We don't have it figured out, but what we do have is we've built this infrastructure for gathering, or retreats, as as some might say. But we hold gatherings that are really interested in ancient new ways. So we host activists and land defenders, and we host people who are doing narrative work on a large scale, and we're hosting Indigenous wisdom keepers and storytellers, and people like myself who are doing voice work. We're hosting a mentee. They do like decolonial body and dance work, healers. So we're really interested again in people who can hold space for new ways of curating culture, the cultures that we want to see.
Yeah.
And then we also have a residential side of what we do, and we have a mutual aid network with the local community that we're embedded in there, and we're on our way to becoming food sovereign. So we're just trying to create different systems internally that can build resilience as things collapse, and we also have spaces when we're not running gatherings for people to come and visit and just be on the land, because the land is so healing. Toucans, sloths, yes, big mother trees, water, rivers. It's just a really nourishing place to spend time and to begin to decolonize your mind if you haven't started that, or continue decolonizing it.
Yeah, I feel like being on that land is the medicine. It's so interesting to watch people when they first arrive, and whether it's in the midst of a big thunderstorm or, torrential rain, or like you say, the toucans and the sloths, people, whole nervous systems respond to that jungle. And I feel like it's quite a feminine. I've not been down to the Amazon, so I've not sat with the in any medicine journeys in South America. But I feel like the jungle's quite friendly in Costa Rica. I don't know if that's the case. If it differs from the sort of the deep jungles that you go to in Peru and Brazil.
Yeah, it's a really feminine, I think, feminine jungle. It is a jungle, we have all sorts of snakes there, and
oh yes, and snakes in the room.
but there's a gentleness to it, and I don't know, that land just like heals me every time I go there.
Yeah, incredible. So if people want to join you, I'm going to put in the show notes links, but when are the dates for that Activating the Voice retreat? I think it is over New Year, right? 2025, 26.
It's December 27th to January 3rd.
Yes. Oh my goodness. What a way to bring in the new year. And what else have you got for people who may not be able to fly out to Costa Rica? Have you got any other offerings that you want to mention? Can people sign up to newsletters, or I know they can find you on Insight Timer. I'm going to put I love listening to your sleep meditations. Especially if I'm stressed. I'm just going to put Sonia in my ears. So I'm going to share those as well, so people can follow you and actually experience your magic. But what else might you have coming?
Well, yeah, you can follow the music path on Bandcamp. That's where I always prefer people listen to music because it's more artist friendly. But I'm also on Spotify and Apple and all the other places. And we have some really exciting remixes coming out and some more music videos from my YouTube channel. And then I'm going to be playing shows in the new year. I'm going to be playing Envision in Costa Rica, and I'm going down to Brazil to play a few shows. And so, yeah,
Incredible.
Sign up for my newsletter and you can stay posted.
That's perfect.
On where to find me.
Oh, Sonia, I love it. I love having you on here. And I'm so envious of anyone that gets to spend time with you and listen to your voice.
I miss you.
I miss you too. So tell me, if you were made, this is a closing tradition on this show.
Oh,
everyone gets asked the same question. If you were made Madam President of the world for a day, and you could change any law and it would just stick in perpetuity, like what would be your offering? What would be your priority for changing?
Oh, gosh, there's so many things right now. I almost feel like it would just be to outlaw all weapons and like all weapons, and there's so many things I'd want to do. Protect lands, require bodies of leadership as opposed to single humans. I don't know.
Yes. Yeah. I love asking this question because women with so, and I mean, I'm saying that and I've not interviewed men on this podcast, so maybe I need to start asking some men. But when I ask women this question, I mean, and it's been getting more and more heightened over as the wars have continued to rage, as the conflicts, as the genocides are starting to, like perpetuate, women are becoming more and more forceful with their, like, outlaw all weapons, stop all violence. I do feel that women are the medicine here. We can, if in order to reimagine a world, this is what does happen. When I discuss a new world with men, they're like, it's never going to work. It's never going to work. And I'm like, when I speak to women, we have a conviction of, oh no, there's another way. There is another way because we can feel it. We can sense it. It's in our bones. And it's the collective, it's the community, it's in circles, it's returning to the ancient, it's like the ancient new ways that you mentioned. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I just wanted to share that because, hey, if you wanted to start a circle, be part of a circle, count me in.
Yay! Yeah, just one closing thought on that. I'm reminded of when you shared that just now, Sherry Mitchell's book, Sacred Instructions, which is just so good.
I don't know this one. I'm going to.
Yeah, she shares, I believe it's her native language. It's I hope I say this correctly, but the Penobscot communities, and their word for woman, part of the definition of it encoded in the language, is the one who holds the eggs. And so I think we have to trust that. Like, we are the stewards of the eggs of what is life affirming, and that's an entrustment.
Yes.
And so this the instinct to say cease violence, or the instinct to just step more into what we are feeling inside of us, that entrustment with life, to be more life affirming and life centering, is really important for us to feel that confidence in what we're feeling.
Yes, that's incredible. And it's reminding me of certain tribes who actually, it's the women who decide whether or not they go to war because they understand the value of life, because they've birthed it. They're not so ready to fight for it. So, yeah.
That's 100% it.
Mm-hmm. Well,
that's it.
to reimagining a beautiful, brave, courageous, more compassionate world with you. Hey, if it happens, it happens. And if it doesn't, I'm committed to it anyway, as I know you are. But I'm with you. I'm with you along the ride, my darling. And I miss you and I love you. And thank you so much.
Love you.
For everything that you're doing and everything you have done and will continue to do. And I can't wait for our paths to cross once more.
Me too. Thank you so much. Such a joy to talk to you.
Oh, give up control again. It's okay not to know again. Feeling in the dark, crawling till I walk. Each time that I fall, divine remembering.